All right, let's dive into something pretty wild today. We're going to unpack a pilot study that sits right at the intersection of, well, quantum physics and food wellness. The big question here is all about something called the Infinity Bloc and whether it can actually help with food intolerances.
So, here's the central question, and it's a big one. Can you actually neutralize a food intolerance with a quantum energy field? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci fi movie, right? But believe it or not, a recent pilot study actually tried to find out.
Okay, let's get into the background of this really unusual investigation. So, the story starts with a naturopathic clinic in Germany. They were basically tasked with one specific mission to figure out if this device, the Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc, could make a real, measurable difference in how people tolerate three very common problem foods. We're talking gluten, cheese, and sugar. Now, to really get what's happening in this experiment, you gotta understand the two key pieces of tech they used. One is the device that's supposed to treat the food, and the other is the one that measures how the body is reacting. First, let's talk about the Infinity Bloc itself. According to the study, it's a device that creates this concentrated quantum energy field. The big claim here is that this field has a kind of organizing or harmonizing effect on whatever you put inside it. The idea is that it basically optimizes it. Okay, so how on earth do you measure that effect? Well, that's where the second device comes in, the Metavital Human. It's described as a diagnostic tool that measures these really subtle electromagnetic changes in your body. You can kind of think of it like a scanner that's trying to create a visual map of your body's stress levels when it's exposed to something. So you've got the treatment box and the measurement scanner. How did they actually put them together for the test? Let's break down the procedure. It's a pretty simple four-step process when you look at it. Step 1, they hook up a person to the Metavital device to get a baseline reading. Step 2, they introduce the food they're testing, let's say it's a piece of bread, and they scan the person's reaction to it. Step 3 is the key part. They take that exact same piece of bread, put it in the Infinity Bloc for just 3 minutes. And finally, step 4, they bring that treated bread back and scan the person again to see if there's any difference. Pretty straightforward. Okay, before we look at the results, you have to understand this legend. It's kind of like a decoder ring for the scans. Basically, the scanner puts these symbols on the images to show what's going on. It's pretty simple. Hexagons are good, think optimal. Triangles mean there's some kind of imbalance, and then you get to the diamonds and black squares. That's where you see a severe problem, where the body's really struggling to cope. All right, so now we know how they did it. Let's get to the good stuff. What did they actually find? We're going to look at the 3 case studies from the paper. First up, we have Roland N. He's got a gluten intolerance. For his test, they zeroed in on his pancreatic ganglion, which is a really key nerve center for the pancreas, to see how it would react to bread with gluten. And wow, take a look at this. This is the reported change, side by side. On the left, that's the before. See all those red and blue triangles? That's signaling imbalance. But then look at the right. This is after the bread was treated in the Infinity Bloc. It's a massive shift to yellow and white hexagons. I mean, you're going from imbalance to very good or even optimal. So what does that translate to numerically? The study crunched the numbers and called it a 71% improvement in his body's ability to handle that gluten. Okay, case study number 2. This person has an intolerance to cow's milk cheese. This time, the scan is looking at the duodenal villi. These are those tiny, little finger-like things in your small intestine that are absolutely critical for nutrient absorption. And here again, look at the difference. The before scan on the left is just full of those downward-pointing red and blue triangles. That's a clear sign of significant stress. But then, after the cheese got its 3 minutes in the block, the after scan on the right shows a huge reduction in those stress markers. For this person, the study reported a 44% improvement in how their body was able to cope with the cheese. And for our final case study, we have Werner B., who is pre-diabetic. Now, his test was on cane sugar's impact on his pancreas, but they actually looked at it from 2 different angles, so we get 2 sets of results for him. First, they went super deep, all the way down to the chromosome level of his insulin-producing cells. And the before image here on the left, it's pretty jarring. You see those diamonds and even a black square? That's the worst reading you can get. But then check out the after shot on the right. Those severe markers are just gone, replaced almost completely by those optimal white hexagons. And this was the biggest jump they reported in the whole study, a 75% enhancement.
Okay, so the second measurement for Werner went back to that same nerve center we saw earlier, the pancreatic ganglion. Now, the before state on the left isn't quite as bad as the chromosome 1 was, but it's still showing stress. And once again, the after image on the right shows a really clear improvement, shifting over to those much better looking yellow hexagons.
This second improvement was measured at a 51% enhancement in his body's response.
So after seeing all these visuals, all these pretty dramatic numbers, you have to ask, what does it all mean? What's the big takeaway here, according to the study's author?
While the paper's conclusion is pretty straightforward, it says, and I'm quoting here, the study shows that the quantum field within the Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc improved the tolerability of the tested foods for each participant. Basically, they're saying that just 3 minutes was enough to make a significant difference, helping to restore the body's condition to somewhere between satisfactory and optimal. But, and this is a really big but, the author is super clear about one thing. This is just a pilot study. It's not some massive peer-reviewed clinical trial. The paper itself says that definitive conclusions cannot yet be drawn. So what we have is a pointer, an interesting trend. And it leaves us with this huge, fascinating question. What would a larger, more rigorous study find? Could quantum energy really influence our biology in this way? For now, that's a question that's still up in the air.